Welcome back to the Be Life podcast. In episode 84, we began to hear the story of Katie Asher and Houston, her son, and really the whole family, her life, everything that had gone on in her life, and then everything that has gone on in Houston's life, and it's all in the book. The Book of Heaven, a story of hope for outcasts, the broken, and those who lost faith, by Katie Asher. And Katie, thank you again for coming on a second time with us. And because there's so much in this book, and there's so much into your life that this story needs to be told. And I'm so grateful that you wrote this book. I can't thank you enough for doing that, and for the labor of love and putting your life, showing your life and being vulnerable and showing your life to everybody. And because I think this is one of the most important books that I have read.
I was reading,
Go ahead.
I was just to what you were saying, and I was reading through some reviews the other night because someone had said, "Oh, I wrote a review." So I was actually trying to find his review, right? This one person that had contacted me, and I found someone else's, and I was humbled by it, but he said, "This is genuinely staggering,"
Hmm.
and I thought, yeah, I mean, really, like it completely shifts what we thought the limits were.
Yes, and that is the key.
Hmm.
We said this at the beginning, Katie, at the beginning of the first episode, where we were talking about your life and everything, and how it all came to the point where we left it, where you finally came out of decades of hopelessness, and because of one glimpse of light from Houston, where he came and tugged on your blanket, and for the first time in 17 years looked you in the eye and said, "Mama, I love you."
Yes.
And how God gave you that glimpse because you started to come back around and you started to develop hope. And that's where we left it. But through that, you started moving forward in your life. And we left it there. But I want people to understand so much that we are lost in this material world, and we sometimes get overwhelmed by it, thinking that it is all there is, and that we separate our spirit. Even those of us who know Jesus Christ, we separate the spiritual from the material. And we look at them as two different worlds when they are one world. God's hand is in each. And you have said this. You said this to me when we talked, and you say it throughout the book. And you grasp this. And this is awesome because you're teaching people like me. But God's hand is in all of it. The material, the spiritual, it's all one. It's all God's. And we need to, as Christians, bring that all back together and realize that it is all one. Don't
Yes.
we? I mean,
that is the point of the book. And that's what Jesus spent those years teaching the disciples. That's literally, he was teaching them how to walk in so much faith that you are doing the work, the miraculous work of God. People have forgotten that we're actually called to do miracles. That's what literally he said, you're going to go on and do more than I did. And right now, I mean, as we can all see, no one's doing that.
yes.
And that's what we're actually called to do, is to do his work, except more.
Mm.
And the only way to do that is to step out of the material and be walking in the spirit completely. And the
Yes.
way to walk in the Spirit is by faith. It's not by sight.
Mm. And what we see, and this is where this gets into where we're going with this second
Hmm.
edition of your story.
Hmm.
And now we move into Houston telling the story. Book
Yes.
2. And I found this fascinating. You all of a sudden you're going through all this, you're going through the trauma, you're going through all the things that go on, and then all of a sudden, I think we have to touch on what you found, what you discovered that
Hmm.
allowed Houston to communicate. And we need
Absolutely.
to start
Hmm.
there.
So, a lot of people ask me, oh, well, after he said, Mama, I love you. So did things start getting better? And I always say, no, they did not. And they actually stayed the same or got worse, considering the rest of my kids were teenagers, and it was pretty awful what was going on. And I was dealing with rebellion. My ex was manipulating my kids. There was an awful lot of trauma. And then during this time, my daughter, was doing drugs and got in a lot of trouble. And then we discovered she was in a very bad relationship that I was very much against. And then we found out that the parents of the boy she was dating had taken my daughter out of school and had a late 2-day abortion performed on my daughter without my
Hmm.
knowledge. And I am dealing with all of that, and I am still trying to believe in a miracle for Houston.
Hmm.
And it was so I want people to understand this juxtaposition between you not being able to see good, like being surrounded by evil, and still having to hold on to what you believe.
Hmm.
And what I believed was that one moment with Houston where he said, Mama, I love you. And I considered that to be a mandate to believe God for his word. And I'd even describe in there that I kept believing in my miracle, even when I couldn't believe in my miracle maker. That
Hmm.
I was believing in belief in just that itself, which I don't want people to get sidetracked on that. I mean, Jesus says all the time throughout you, he says, it's your faith that healed you. It was your faith, our faith, God has given us this, we are made in the image of God with this ability to believe and create good based on what he accomplished on the cross. His promises through our faith become manifest. That's
Hmm.
actually how it works. And but I was still in the place of just believing and I hadn't seen. And
Hmm.
this is about the seeing and what I saw. So fast forward, that I Mama I Love You happened when he was 17 and he was um 21, almost 22. And I ran into some old family friends from church, and their son was just as severe as Houston. Because I want everyone to understand whenever you have a severely autistic child, the whole time, people are like, oh, I heard about this cure. Oh, I heard about this tea. Oh, I heard about this. You just need to do this therapy. And you're
Yeah.
like, done it, tried it, doesn't work. I have to have a miracle. That's what I had to have. So I ran into this family, and this father comes. He literally sees me, and he sees Houston, and he goes, "Oh my goodness, what are you going to do with Houston?" That is the other thing that people don't understand is that the whole time you're raising your severely autistic child, people are asking you, and you're questioning yourself, what are you going to do when he gets older? And it's
Yeah.
an incredibly offensive question.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's one that people
it's
naturally want to
they,
ask,
they
I
do want
think.
to know, and I understand them wanting to know, but the options are so horrible that you can't go there.
Yeah.
And the answer that I finally satisfied myself with and would tell people is my plan is to do. is for Houston to spend his entire life with people who love him. In fact, that's my same plan for all of my children. And that
Mm,
should be our answer for all human beings, is every
mm,
human being should be with people who love them.
mm.
And that's where we as a world really need to go to. But anyway, so this father has a severely autistic child, so I don't find the question offensive coming from him because I know he's living it, right?
Right.
So he's like, well, what are you going to do with Houston? Because he was about to age out of school. And I said, I don't know. And he's almost 22. That's when you age out of public school. And he said, well, by no means do I want to tell you what to do, but I want to tell you what we've done. And I said, okay, well, their son stands up and has really sporadic body movements and his body just goes all over the place. And he said, what we found out was that they actually are totally in there. And what they have is a motor impairment. Remember, I talked in the beginning about the
Yes.
motor?
Yes.
He said, what they have is a motor impairment. He said, they know what they want to say, they just can't get it out. And he said, so what we did was we started training the motor so that they could use gross motor to point to letters, and then they could spell out what they wanted to communicate. And he said, whenever we did this, he said, my son would always say, park, park, park. So we would take him to the park all the time.
Mm.
Whenever he began spelling, my son spelled, I know I say park all the time. I can't help it. I don't want to go to the park.
Oh, wow.
I know. So what that was, it was actually Tourette's, right? It was this motor loop that just kept
Yes.
firing. And we on the outside, as the observer, placed meaning on it, believed it was intentional, and then, and of course, responded to it, doing
Yes.
what we thought they were asking for. Anyway, this young man, as the dad looks at Houston and starts talking to Houston like he is a 21-year-old competent adult. And
Mm.
I was like, what is going on? No one had ever spoken to Houston like he understood them, ever. It was
Wow.
all like as a 2 or 3-year-old.
Mm.
And this man is sitting there talking to my son, and I'm in shock. My jaw's hanging open, and I turn and I look at the young man who's a non-speaker, and he's taken his arms, because his arms are like all over the place. And
Right.
he's taken his arms and he's squeezing his arms and trying to hold his arms still. And he is staring into my eyes with so much intensity that the way I explain it is it's the way that only the soul can communicate. When you know that his soul was speaking to my soul.
Mm.
And I knew it. And I walked out of there and I said, I have no idea what just happened, but we're doing that. Like whatever that is, that's like we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
so, so I met with his mom, and this young man sat there and answered all of my questions. But basically, he communicated to me by pointing to letters, and of course, motor, as we all know, is something that you build on. Like you start with great gross basic motor, and then you build and build and build and get more complex. You as a coach understand this. You don't
Yes.
just take
Yes.
somebody off the field and go,
Yes.
go run this play. Like that's not how that works.
Right. Right.
Yeah, you have to build up the basic skills before they can then do more complex motor. Well, what people don't know about speech is 100% motor, and speech has nothing to do with language. And it actually takes 7 different body systems working together and over 100 different motors to create the sounds that we recognize in our brains as language that have meaning. And what has happened is because of that encephalopathy and the demyelination of the motor, is their motor is broken down. So they as a human being are still completely intact, but unable to coordinate all of the motor that's required for speech. But whenever you
How
point,
does that have to feel, Kate? I'm sorry to
horrible.
interrupt, but
Yeah.
I can't even imagine the frustration
Yeah.
that
Yes.
these people that Houston went through for 17, 18, for 21 years,
Yes. Yes.
not being able to communicate the things that he knew.
And being misinterpreted and misunderstood by the behavior that his body did perform,
Yeah,
and people thinking that that's what he was thinking.
yeah.
And Houston described it later on when I get to that part, but he described it like being trapped inside an enemy combatant, as he felt his body betrayed him every single day. So this
How
young
can
man
I
sat
ask?
there.
How do they
Mhm.
know how to? How do they know how to point? How do they know letters?
Yes, right. So this is what's so interesting is we've been taught on a framework of assuming that we only know things because everything's broken down and we're taught it piece by piece by piece. And the reason we think that is because that's how the schools are actually set up. Now, what's interesting is that learning and motor development don't necessarily they're not necessarily the same thing. Like we can actually learn some things even if we are missing a piece of something else. Like, and that's because the way that we learn is so complex and we're learning through
Hmm.
multiple sensory ways. Like, so he and I, when I asked his spelling coach that, because the first time that Houston ever sat down to spell, he was like behaving badly and his body was going all over the place. And I'm like, be quiet. You can't even hear what she's saying. And she turns and looks at me and says, oh, he hears everything. And then she sits down and puts a letterboard in front of him and says, what's my name? And he took the pencil and went straight to the first letter and started spelling her name. And I was like, wait a minute. How does he know how to spell? That was
Yes.
my question. And her answer was, language is everywhere. And they are learning all the time. And that was a shock to me. But I will say that I actually did teach him letters when he was a little boy.
Hmm.
And at the time I felt it was fruitless. Like I was like teaching him letters and he would never be able to read. But I don't know, there was something in me that just was like, I have to teach him letters. I have to teach him sounds. And so I did do that. I taught him letters and I taught him sounds, thinking he didn't understand anything. But what had happened was he did learn and he did absorb all of that. And he was learning everywhere. And whenever I get into the really incredible parts, you'll see how that was happening. Um, but again, I was presuming that you don't know something unless you can demonstrate that you know it. And
Right.
that's what we've assumed, is that you don't know something unless you've demonstrated you've known it. But all demonstration of knowledge requires motor control. Speaking, writing, signing, anything, it requires motor planning. So if your motor's broken, you can still have comprehension of something without being able to demonstrate it.
And much deeper comprehension than we could ever imagine
That's exactly
in his
right.
case.
Yes. So this young man sat there and answered all of my questions. And I'm watching him and he says, don't let time or money detour you. Don't let the fact that you've tried a zillion. And I remember he pushed the Z and I'm thinking, what word is he spelling with the letter Z in it? And he said zillion interventions over the years deter you. This is the real deal. It's not a cure. We don't need a cure. We need a chance to live a life as who we are. We need the same chance to be known that everyone else gets effortlessly. We are great people.
Now, you said in the book that one of the first things he said to you was, I'm in here.
Yes. So, with this mom's help, I start my letterboard journey and I went to the coach and he starts spelling out her name. And then he did like a whole lesson on Edward Shackleton, who's the first explorer to the Antarctic. And I'm over here going, I mean, you're doing it in like a teach ask format. So you're teaching them the material, you're presuming they're smart and that they can understand the material. And then
Right.
you're helping just coach their body move to letters. So, for example, if I said, spell what continent was Edward Shackleton exploring, and I've just taught him, then I would ask him, I know what the answer is, he knows what the answer is. And now I'm just helping coach his arm to get to the letter A
Okay.
and then to get to the next letter. And what I'm doing is I'm coaching the actual motor planning. And you go out, you go back, and you're trying to develop 26 neural pathways so that they can independently point to 26 different letters and spell out any word they want, any
Now,
concept they want.
has this developed beyond now with computers and stuff, or is it still the board?
Well, he's working on typing. But what
Okay.
people don't understand is that, and I'll get to the part about energy in a minute, but all of these devices, all these electronic devices, they both transmit and receive energy, massive amounts. And this is actually more complicated, making it more difficult. Whereas a stencil or a piece of paper with a laminated is really simple. And
I get it.
you're not having to navigate an electromagnetic energy source as well as your complicated neural motor.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not that we're not against technology. It just actually offers an obstacle that is significant.
Interesting. Because
Yeah,
they're very sensitive to energy.
very sensitive to energy. And I'll get to that amazing part.
Can we do this? And
Mhm.
you tell me. I'm going to let you
Okay.
take this, Katie. But
Okay.
can I go through? What I did was I took some quotes
Mhm.
from Houston's story in book 2,
Mhm.
and I put them here. I put them on my laptop, on my tablet, and I was going to read these as a jumping off point for you to tell the story.
Oh, we can do
But
that.
maybe
Sure.
that's not, you sure?
I,
Can we try that?
absolutely. I think I should probably just tell the I'm in here part and
Yes.
the thoughts part,
Go
and then
ahead.
I think yeah, that'll set it up for you to ask
All
anything.
right, great.
So so I begin teaching him, coaching his body to point to letters. And the very first independent words that Houston ever spelled were in answer to the question, if you could put any slogan on a t-shirt, what would it be? And Houston spelled, I'm in here. I had no idea. I'm I've been cleaning up fecal smearing for 20 years. I've been dealing with stimming and really bizarre behaviors and eloping and nakedness and screaming and self-injury. I mean, Houston will bite himself so bad he'll like grind on the bones, he'll rip off like the skin on his hands. Like it's not minor, it's major.
Yeah.
And so when he spells I'm in here, it was like my whole world exploded.
Mm.
And suddenly I'm looking at the spirit, the actual etheric being, the soul of my son, as opposed to this physical body.
Mm.
And I, I felt like I had my child returned to me after being kidnapped for 2 decades. That's what it felt like. And all I wanted was to know my son. I was obsessed. I was like, I couldn't, I did, he describes me like a beast. He said, you were a beast, like teaching him to spell because, and I was like, no, we're doing spelling lessons. That's all we're going to do. Like, And it was exhausting for him because imagine you can't control your body and you're just like, just lifting your arm to point takes
Yeah.
everything out of you. And so I had to build up his stamina. And then it then there's also this emotional trauma from being trapped that he didn't know how much to share. Like he wasn't sure how much he wanted to share about himself or his life or his experiences because he didn't know how, people would receive what he had to say, which was significant. So as he's pouring out all of this information, I one of my sons was being extremely skeptical and mean and doubting. And he's like, how can he know this much? Because he was just sure that Houston was not intelligent.
Right.
And I said, I don't know, but clearly he does. Like, look, I mean, you see it.
Yeah.
And so he was being very ugly, and I like told him to leave, and I was very mad at him. And I asked Houston, I said, Houston, I really don't know. How do you know all of this information? Because he was like spelling out the Declaration of Independence. He was answering questions that I didn't know the answer to. And I was like, where is this information coming from? And he said, I'm special. And I'm like, of course you are, like a mom.
Yeah.
you know, like everyone's special,
Yeah.
he's like, no, you don't get it. And he says, I can hear thoughts. And of course, if someone says that to you, you don't believe it because
Sure.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so I said, are you lying? That was my response. And he said, you don't get the kind of gifts I have if you lie. And so I started testing him. And not only did he pass every single test, but then I started communicating to him without using words, without spoken words, only with my thoughts. And he starts spelling out on the boards the answer to my questions that I never spoke.
Whoa. Now, I have to tell you, I hear that, and my natural instinct is to go, no way. No way.
Right.
But I believe you. I
Well,
trust you.
here's
I
what
believe.
happened. Do you remember back when I was doing the yoga and they were telling me that thoughts were things and that
Yes.
everything real comes from a thought? Well,
Yes.
suddenly that night, as I'm sitting there going, how is this even possible? How is this possible? Suddenly I realized, oh my goodness,
Thoughts.
thoughts are things.
Yes.
And that was a fundamental reality that covers everything else that we're going to cover. And that is that thought is energy. Energy and matter are the same thing. They are just measured in different ways. Einstein is the first one to figure this out. That's what E equals mc squared actually means, is that energy and matter are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so if thought is energy, then it obeys the laws of energy. And the very first law of energy is the law of conservation, which says that energy is neither created nor destroyed, it is only transferred. So what is happening, we think of our thoughts are just in our head and they're not really doing anything. They're just like our little thoughts, and they're in our little brain casing, and they're ours. We own them, you know, and that's the little space that they stay in. And that's not true. Thought is energy, and it goes out and it does exactly what we think. It
Hmm.
just does. It obeys the laws of energy, which is why God is always telling us to take every thought captive, that if you believe,
Wow. Yes.
ask, and but you have to believe that all things are possible for the one who believes. And it's not because if you say to this mountain, go throw yourself in the sea, and believe it will happen, it will be done. And do not doubt. Doubt is the opposing force. Faith and doubt are the same thing. They're just in opposite directions.
Mm.
So whenever you're doubting, you're literally creating a force against the thing that you're trying to believe. And so obviously I've spent most of my life doubting at this point and being incredibly,
But all of us do that. You did it to a large extent
I did.
because you're doubting, and really, I could say you had more reason to doubt than most of us. So,
Right.
but we all do this. I
Yes.
doubt. There's a part of me that doubts you saying what you said.
Hmm.
I I truly do believe that, Katie. But there's a part of me that wants to go, I'm not going to be foolish and go for this. You know, and you and I have talked about this off
Yeah.
the air, but we want to cocoon ourselves. We
Yes.
don't want to buy into all this because it's honestly, it's more than most of us can grasp. And so
It
you're
is.
living, yes,
It's quantum mechanics is what it is.
yes,
It's, I mean, but the
yes,
thing is us not believing it doesn't stop it from working.
that's true.
It's,
And doesn't
you know,
stop it from being real and true.
exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, us not believing it is actually us limiting ourselves. And that's what we're doing when we're limiting ourselves. Whenever in Acts when it talks about the disciples regularly performed miracles
Mm,
regularly. They did that because they had had their doubt shattered. They had seen the risen Lord. Their doubt was destroyed.
mm,
They knew the power of faith. And I want to, and even like Peter walking on water, like
mm.
he was able to walk on water because he believed, because he believed that in the power of Christ was all power to do anything. He said,
Yeah.
if you call me and to come to you, then I can walk on the water too. Like that
Mm,
was the whole thing. And Jesus said, come. And what did Peter do? Then he started looking at the waves
mm,
instead of at the Lord. And then he fell.
mm,
And what did Jesus say? Oh, you of little faith. And picked
mm-hmm.
him up and loved him and still loved him. And it didn't stop. Our doubt doesn't keep us from loving him. It keeps us from walking in the spirit.
Yeah.
And that's where he wants us. And so, and here's something like just so in the whole quantum mechanics thing, I don't think a lot of people pick it up, but like in John 6, where he's walked on the water and he's like, and this is after he's taken like a couple loaves and fish and fed 4,000 people and then had 12 baskets left over. And then he says, don't listen to the leaven of the Pharisees. Basically, don't listen to all the logic and reason. Don't listen to that. Listen to this is who I am. This is what I am. This is
Yeah.
what I do. And you need to believe this is what I'm trying to give you. You need to believe that I'm providing like this. That
Mm,
I'm then he stays and prays. They go 3 to 4 miles out on the water. Jesus is walking on the water to them. Everybody's like, whoa, what's this? And then it says, and then they were immediately at shore. A lot of people miss that part.
yeah.
They're immediately at shore. What that is, that's translation. That was literally either a compression of space or a compression of time.
Mm,
And then, of course, when Christ, after he's in his resurrected body, he was like walking through the door, right? He was
mm,
walking through the locked door. And this is actually like, this is like the resurrected body that literally nothing, you're not even worried about physical matter anymore.
mm.
You can manipulate it, like the power that God wants us to walk in, that he has accomplished on the cross, is the power to walk in his power
Mm.
and do
How
his
does
work.
how does Houston? What is it about him? Is it because he's been so long without the physical that he is so in tune with the spiritual
Yes, and
that
that
he
you said it
grasped this?
perfectly. You said it perfectly. What happened was he was basically demyelinated, which that's what connects us to our physical body, is motor. And whenever the encephalopathy demyelinated his neural pathways, it did two things. It prevented new ones from forming, but it also, the encephalopathy prevented the sensory synapses from being pruned more. And that's just basically this massive input network. So here he was, almost loose, very, very loosely connected to his physical body, but still a completely intact etheric soul. So at that point, what do? Well, you develop more into your etheric body and you connect more to the spiritual etheric world
Wow.
than the material world. And that's what he did. And what opens the veil, and this is important for everybody to understand, it's faith. Faith is what opens the veil. And yes, he was given a step up in the fact that his sensory synapses weren't pruned. And so he was taking in more in, but it was his faith is what opened everything up. And he talks about it where he talks about his early childhood and the praying and the praying and the praying and begging for God to answer him. Will you please let me speak? Will you please? And he was just praying, pouring out his prayers. And unfortunately, hearing all of my thoughts, feeling all of my feelings. And this is important for everyone to understand is everything is energy. That includes our emotions. In fact, that's actually what emotions are. They're exactly what the word says. Energy, motion, energy in motion. And our organs are actually what produce the frequencies that we recognize as emotions, but they're energy. And then our physical body has a response, and we provide a thought to basically give those frequencies, those energies, meaning. Like you have an emotion to something, and then you find the thought to back up the emotion.
Hmm.
And that can work to our advantage or disadvantage.
Yes.
Because what we tend to do is we let the emotions be in charge.
Hmm.
And for example, if I have an emotion of fear, then the mind wants to find a thought to back up that emotion. But I think we've all had that feeling where you have an emotion, but you're like, I don't know why I'm feeling this. I can't really place this. And it can be that your etheric being is actually sensing something spiritually. It can also be that you've had a similar experience before and the body's used to producing that emotion with that experience.
Right.
And so but it's not the same experience. So you're like, but that thought doesn't work because this isn't the same experience. And it's almost like your physical being is like looking for a thought to root into to
The,
then to then act on that thought
yeah.
based on an emotion. And
And so
this is where
he was seeing all that. He was sensing all that. So he got all the negative,
all of it.
all of it. But
And
but
yeah,
he also understood. He also didn't hold it against you because he understood later. Some of the things I read was that he he understood how much you loved him
he
and
did.
how much you cared for him. So it wasn't like he took it and it destroyed him. As a matter of fact, he saw beyond it.
His wisdom was a result of him seeing the Lord. Is this really what it was? Because he had the faith of a child, believing, praying, seeking, hoping, being given these little glimpses into the spiritual realm. And then he had his heart broken with my daughter, and he was able to know that my husband was molesting my daughter, and here he was unable to tell me what was going on, and
Mm,
it devastated him. And he talks about that being the winter of his life.
Wow.
But it was in that winter where he felt like despair. Here he knew the truth of what everyone was going on and couldn't communicate the truth.
Mm.
He knew the truth of the spiritual realm. He knew the truth of the Lord, and he knew the truth of evil,
Mm.
and couldn't tell anybody and do anything. And he said he wanted to be a hero, and his body prevented him from being a hero. And that's when the Lord came to see him. And his description of meeting Christ is so profound and genuine. It changes anyone who reads it, but it obviously also changed Houston. And it gave him a purpose so completely secure in who Christ is that that's the only thing he was going to pursue. He was going to pursue God's purpose for his life, which was to be a herald and to tell the world what he has seen.
Wow.
And he was going to believe God no matter what he saw in the spiritual realm or the evil he saw in people. He was going to hang on to the goodness and faithfulness of God, period.
Can I read some of these things so that
Yes,
people can get a glimpse into what he said?
absolutely.
One of the things he says is thought is a thing, which is what it's a form of energy. It's unseen. That is why there is power in prayer and why prayer works. And then he said, wonder and grace. These are just two words to describe my journey over the past 2 years, 24 months, 734 days. Living with autism is actually a blessing if you have the right perspective. He says, I see the world differently than my neurotypical peers, which has opened my eyes and my mind to things around me, albeit to the 1 millionth degree when my body is in overdrive. Like many of my non-speaking or like me non-reliably speaking autistics, I felt like I was trapped. I was locked in a car of a body with no steering wheel or GPS to guide me. The words I wanted to say when I was happy, sad, anxious, frustrated, or fill in the blank with any emotion came out as a scripted and jumbled mess. Like someone pressed play on the worst movie, put it on repeat, and broke the remote control. It can be a nightmare. But then he goes on to say, this is so refreshing. I'm no rocket scientist, but I do love the challenge of higher education. In closing, thank you all who have helped me get to where I am today. And the words of encouragement, love one another, and here's to 2 more years of purposeful communication. Yours truly, Houston.
Now we're at 8 years.
Yes, now we're at 8. And then he says, this was the one that I used at the beginning, where he says, now my first memory of attempting to communicate was for food. I remember I had heard my mom cooking and asked her for an apple, but nothing came out of my mouth. I made all these efforts at speaking, but nothing came out. It had to be when I was almost 2, since my sister Reagan was a baby, and he knows all this. And Morgan and I shared the bedroom. My anger and fear grew as I kept trying to speak. I am not sure all that I did, but my mom couldn't understand my efforts. That was awful for me. But it all but disappears when it's compared to all I went through the next 2 decades. Going back to this is my way of being a hero to a little version of me. Mostly, I promised myself I would always be a friend to others like me. My first memory of stimming makes me happy. So he talks about when he first realized he was trapped.
Yeah.
and how this all went. Stop me anytime to add whatever you
Oh,
want, but
I mean,
I
you're
just,
doing beautifully. Yeah.
this is only one part of it. My body and my mind hated each other. And this is what I found very touching. How my mom survived, I don't know. She believed in God and how God could bring good out of anything. But having to clean up my feces that I smeared on everything made my mom begin to doubt God and wonder if he really was there. How anyone could believe God is good when they carry so much is totally understandable. She lost God in those sad years. Coping with me took more than any human should bear. Most of my life, I've dealt with this shame. He talks about the shame he has
Yeah.
for what you went through. And that, to me, Katie, is in itself mind-boggling. Here's a young man who's trapped in a body, can't control the body, can't communicate his thoughts, and he's feeling shame for what you went through. When I read that, I almost cried. That broke my... The only good thing, and he says this, the only good thing is that she never stopped loving me. He knew that. So all the things that you think you thought and all the guilt that you have about thinking things, he knew the whole time.
You know
Never stopped loving him.
what's really funny is like he'll do things now that are, of course, destructive or just disruptive or something that are, and I'll get frustrated and throw my hands up, walk out there, and I'll be mad, and he'll come back and he'll go, "That's okay. Best friends have fights."
Wow.
And I'm like, "How are you even like this? How are you just?" It's it's like how God is with us, right?
Mm,
Like
absolutely.
just mercy upon mercy upon mercy.
Yes.
When we get mad at God and he's like, "You'll come back. I love you," you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like,
And you do the same to him.
"Yeah, I do, I do."
And you
But
do the
that's
same to
but this is
him.
love, right? This is how we're supposed to love. With love covers a multitude of sins. We are all sinners. We all mess up, but love is what holds us together and what fixes the pain and what helps us move past it. It's
Yeah.
love.
Yeah. And I have to read this. This is him also. When I was young, I spoke to God, good prayers pleading to speak. His silence added to my pain that was beyond imaginable. The pain I experienced was hearing so many sounds, hearing my starts of speaking that went nowhere, my screaming, my mom's crying, the good conversation around me that forced me to see that having a voice would make all the difference. Every time prayers left my heart, I felt a weird feeling like they were given to find flight, parting the air. The movement of prayer felt like something with a powerful lift taking off as it left me. That's when I made my first discovery. Prayers had wings that thoughts didn't have. Have you ever felt a prayer so filled with power that is answered more wonderfully than what you prayed? Good. How that happens is angels take it to his workman in heaven. Your guardian angel, that friend that never forgets you, is always talking to love the way far away and to his workmen that print the prayer to fall at his footstool. At his footstool, prayers are given to God as praise. In your faith, they are made to be an offer for worship to God. Moving our prayers is much of the work of heaven. Each thanksgiving to God wakes angels to do what we pray. And you said, when Houston shared this truth, I realized that asking and believing God would answer my prayers was a sign of worship at his feet, literally. The realization utterly changed the way I prayed and how often I prayed. And this has made a difference in my life since reading this. Instead of fear and lack of, I felt joy, love, and gratitude, knowing I was placing an offering of faith and worship at his feet. He goes on, he just talks about the white light. Sometimes at night when I was only with my little brothers, the room started turning into white, overpowering white. That's when I heard my name. Truly, there's one voice that's more masculine, more real than any voice I would probably ever hear. Trust me, it's wonderful. Mostly the sound of his words made me pray. Store all my love, good son. The sword that I'm wearing is sometimes called the word of truth. Open your eyes. This is for you to pray with. That's when I saw someone standing with him. Open your mouth, wipe your tears, start to pray, love your mother. That's what she needs. I mean, I go through this and I'm reading this and Katie, I the whole time I was wondering, how in the world could this, what is it about this young man that could find God so real? So real. I mean, he sees God. He sees Jesus. He said, there's one point in the book, and I don't have it written down here, but he's talking about his angels are 10-foot beings with huge wings, and they are all around. And they
Well,
are
and the dog
on the
could see them.
dogs. Yeah.
The dog could see the angels. And y'all, I witnessed it. This little fur baby. It was one of the teeny tiny dogs. This dog was so overwhelmed by what he saw that he was bowing. He had put his head on the ground. His tush was up in the air. His tail was curled completely under, and his little paws were outstretched. He was bowing.
Wow.
I saw it. And I was seeing a creature that could see. And the overwhelming response was awe, fear, and trembling. And then the little dog, the owner picked up the dog, and the dog was just shaking. It was so completely out of control, shaking because of what it had seen.
And you also mentioned in the book about dogs being they're totally attracted to
Houston,
Houston.
for sure. And not
And
just Houston. I mean, for sure there's other non-speakers they're attracted to as well. But Houston, I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, what is it with the dogs? And he said they know that I'm someone close to God.
wow.
And then there was this one dog that the owner kept trying to throw catch with the dog, and the dog would catch the ball and then kept bringing it to Houston. And the owner kept trying to like take the dog away, and the dog kept doing it. And then whenever the owner tried to leave with the dog was going crazy trying to stay with Houston.
Oh.
And I said, what is it? What was the dog trying to say? And he said, because, that's the whole thing. It's energy. And so whenever your mind can take and absorb that much energy, you're processing it as intention, not as language. So just understand that. So he understands the intent of whatever the dog is communicating, and he's feeling it as intention. And I said, what was the dog communicating? And he said, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. And it was whatever angelic beings were around Houston that the dog was seeing. And this is what we have to realize is like the host of heaven, the incredible army of the living God serves the Lord by serving us.
Hmm.
That's how important we are. Like we are his children.
Hmm.
And he sends these incredibly powerful spiritual beings to minister to us, to help us, to do
Hmm.
his will. Well, I don't know why on earth we're doing our will when we could be doing his will. Like,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, we're
like,
so
why would we
stupid.
do that?
We are so stubborn. We are so stubborn. And I get that, and I'm getting that more. And your journey, if I'm wrong, tell me.
Okay.
But your two journeys were parallel. Both of you and Houston, and we are also like this. But he was trapped in a body that wasn't doing what it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
You were trapped in trauma and things, not being able to communicate what was going on in your life also.
Yes, that's true.
God brought you two together. He brought Houston into your life and you into Houston's life. To walk this path together, as hard as it is, and I'm not saying I would wish that on anyone, either of you,
Yeah.
but he has led you to this point where you have opened each other up. And because of that, you have been able to tell the story, and thank you for this, Katie.
Yes.
You have been able to tell the story that hopefully I was praying this morning, early morning, 5:00 in the morning, knowing that we were going to get together, that this story becomes an awakening for those who are also walking that way, because we're all doing, let's face it, when we go through life and we wear a mask and we put on airs and we hide behind things and we're not vulnerable and real with people, we're all doing the same thing. We're lost behind something that's not real.
Right.
And I pray that your story and Houston's story and the struggles you've gone through are not in vain, because I'm praying that people right now who don't know Jesus Christ will see that what life in Christ is all about, and that it's much deeper, and that those of us in Christ.
Okay.
Is that Houston?
He just ran to get something. He just
Oh, okay.
left. He
But
ran in and ran out.
that uh, that people who do that, those of us who know Christ, can stop seeing two things as the two worlds as separate,
Mm-hmm.
and could start seeing them joined together in all God's work and all God's world. Even though it's a fallen world, it is God's world.
Yes.
And he created everything through thought. And that we start processing this and living in the spiritual world as one. Does that
Well,
make
absolutely. And the thing is all creation is
yeah.
longing for the sons of man, of the sons of God to be revealed. For they have been subjected, futilely, not out of their will. It was man that messed up, but all creation was subjected
Yes.
and to this bondage. And they, all living things, all creation is living and trying to break out of this bondage. And it requires us being in the Lord's will to free everyone. We have to be doing God's will. We have to bring his kingdom come, his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We do.
Mm.
It is upon us. And he has given us everything that we need for life and godliness. And it's not for this, look, we got it all together. We're wearing all the right clothes and saying all the right
Mm.
things and belong to the right church. No, no. It is us doing the will of God. And the will of God is to love mercy, to do justice and love mercy and walk humbly with him. It is to set the oppressed free. It is to open the eyes of the blind, open the ears of the deaf. It is to open the lips of the mute. It is to make the lame walk. It is to make the dead raise. It is to destroy oppression and injustice. It is to fight for truth. It is to spread the gospel. It says that the will of God is to make known that Christ is who he says he is.
Mm.
And who he says he is the Messiah. He is the will of God incarnate. He is the completed truth. He has completed everything on that cross and that resurrection for us. And we are to, the way we receive everything he accomplished is by faith. And so the more we walk in that, the more his will happens. The more people see truth, the more people believe truth. When there's a part in the book where everything goes horribly wrong, and this is after Houston can communicate, I lose everything. Everything. And Houston, by the way, has been harassing me to write this book at this point. And I am 100% against it, just so everybody knows. I was a unwillful participant at that point. And his response after I lose my job, one of my sons has betrayed us. It's, we have nothing. And now I have no job. And of course, what do you do if you lose your job? What do? You go get another job.
Yeah.
That's what you do. You find a way to provide. And when I lost the job, Houston brings me the letterboard and he spells, "Now the good can begin."
Whoa.
That wouldn't be what we would say, would it?
No.
And what happened right after that was, of course, I go to try to find a job because I'm not going to worry about good. That's I have to worry about surviving.
Yes.
And COVID happened and everything shut down. And what people don't realize is I wrote 450 pages of this book in 4 months. And that's the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Yeah. And at the time, of course, it was debilitating writing all of that and just reliving all of the trauma. But it was also a rebirth. And what it is it's my offering and it's Houston's offering of our lives and what we've learned and our journey to give to the world, to say all things are possible for the one who believes, to say now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all we ask or even imagine, according to his power at work within us. We're showing you how. We're showing you that faith is real. It's not this concept. We think of faith, we think of all these immaterial things as these like symbols or concepts, or not realizing that these are the actual great unseen forces of the universe. This is, if you want to know the mysteries of the universe, it's faith, it's love. That's what it is.
Hmm.
And the opposing forces are everything that's against those. And what has happened, the good that has started to happen, is far beyond anything I could have ever even imagined. I was hoping that, people would realize that faith is real, that Jesus is Lord, and that non-speakers would get a voice. And instead, something so much greater than I could have ever planned is what's happening. And people's whole spirits are being broken open to the power of the Holy Spirit within their lives and hearts to do the impossible.
Amen. Katie, I want to remind people, her book is called The Book of Heaven, a story of hope for outcasts, the broken, and those who lost faith. Katie Asher, and co-written by Houston.
By Houston, yes.
And
There's one other thing I wanted people to know,
please,
and that is that what was so extraordinary about when Houston started telling me about heaven was he was describing it, and I realized he was describing scriptures he had never read in profound ways, as if he was experiencing it, not just reciting it.
Wow. You said one thing that I'm going to leave it with this too. You said, before I believed in God, now I believe God.
Amen.
And I thought that was incredible. I shared that with a pastor friend of mine, and he went, "Oh, I need to remember that." That is so good. Katie, I want to thank you. You've been absolutely amazing. These two podcasts have been, I hope they're life-changing for people. I know they will be. I know they will be. In your book, and folks, you could get this book anywhere, right, Katie? Amazon.
Well, mostly
anything?
Amazon. If you are opposed to Amazon, just reach out to me, send me a message, and I will mail you a book. I do have some printed copies, but some people are like, don't want to use Amazon, and I support it. I support wherever you are in your, in your distribution.
How do they get
Um,
in touch with you?
so I have an email. It's asher.house.hope@gmail.com, or you can message me on um, Facebook, which is just Katie Asher, or
ASHER. Yes.
yes. And then I have Instagram, which is Asher House Hope, and same on TikTok. I am more than willing to help people. If $25 is out of your budget, and I know we have people that don't even have that to spare, do not let that prevent you. Reach out to me. I will get you a book. Okay.
Yeah.
It's more important that you read the book than um, anything else.
Yeah. It is.
Because
It is
that's what
important.
transforms you.
I'll tell you what. It's amazing. Katie, I thank you so much. I love you.
Love you too. Thank
I
you.
told you this is not the end of our relationship. I want to keep in touch, and I would love to sit down sometime and actually get to share my love with Houston too. And I don't know if we could do that via Zoom or whatever. But
And
God
you
bless
may
you.
want to read Josiah's Fire, which is another non-speaker, and they're sharing what they've seen in heaven as well.
Okay.
And and then Max Davis, Jesus, Josiah, and Me, where Josiah is hearing Max's prayers, and Max lives in Louisiana, and Josiah is an 8-year-old boy in Minnesota. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love you. I thank
Love you
you.
too.
God bless you, and we will talk again soon. Thank you so much, Katie Asher.
Thanks so
Have a great
much.
one.